Hi, welcome to the I Wait for Money podcast, episode 3 with Craig Daniel, your host, where we look to make more than those 20% measly tips. And we're looking to make 50, 60, 80% tips and give the guests the experience that they've never had, allowing them to tip like they have never tipped before. Today's episode 3, we're going to talk about what I call the secret weapon of service. Episode 2 that we just had previously was all about less is more, which means you're going to get the job done, be courteous, be professional, take care of business, but you're not going to intrude on the table and tell them your life story and kind of interrupt their conversation and make the experience about you. You're basically just in the background, giving them a phenomenal experience and letting them enjoy each other's company. Today's episode with the secret weapon of service, what I'm going to talk about is how I developed it, how I kind of accidentally ran into it because of my personality and what I saw it do, and then some tweaks from that point forward. I used it, obviously, and never looked back. I did make some tweaks to it, added some things to it, which is what we'll talk about in future episodes. But the whole crux of I Wait for Money podcast was all developed because of this one strategy that I realized when I went back to serving. It was 2009, and I had moved. I was a stay-at-home dad, became a stay-at-home dad from being a math teacher. Was working at restaurants also while teaching. But then once I moved to Ohio, then everything changed. Became a stay-at-home dad. Got a little stir crazy. Started applying at restaurants and thought, be a good part-time, just looking for a part-time job to get out and about. And applied at 21 restaurants because this is 09, so we still had the little kind of recession of 08 that occurred. So in 09, I applied at like 21 or 22 restaurants and only had one actually call me for an interview, and that was Olive Garden. Got the job at the Olive Garden, and I had mentioned to him that I had actually worked at the Olive Garden in college, and he told me I should have put that right on the application. He would have hired me on the spot. But I didn't know that because I thought it was so long ago that it really didn't matter. But so I got the job at the Olive Garden, started waiting on tables just like I used to when I was in college and when I was teaching, and I enjoyed it. And I was doing a good job and getting that, hoping for that 20% tip, hoping to get more than 15%, hoping that they liked my service and they appreciated my attitude and would give me 20%. Well, what happened because of my age, I guess, and because of what I had been through in my life, just, working as a teacher, professional for 10 years and whatnot, what inevitably happened in my third or fourth shift was these, tables asking for stuff such as, can we have more breadsticks? Can we have another Diet Coke? And it kind of, because of my personality, I guess, and because of being older and more experienced and whatnot, it kind of felt like a dig. It kind of got under my skin, and it kind of felt like they were telling me that I'm not doing a good job, even though they weren't. They were just wanting their stuff taken care of, right? So, everybody does that. You go out to eat and whatever, and you want another soda, or you want some more chips and salsa, or whatever it may be. You ask for more, and that's why you have a waiter, right? And the server goes and gets it for you, and that's why you're tipping, right? So anyway, as this occurred, then I was just getting a little bit frustrated, or really a little bit too cocky, I guess, or you could say proud. So I was too proud. I was kind of proud that they had to tell me what to do when I thought I was good enough to take care of it on my own. So what I did is I started now not allowing any table to ask for anything. Okay, now what I mean by that is I didn't physically say, "Oh, you can't ask me for anything. I'm not getting it." I don't mean it like that. What I mean is I would be so on top of it and so far ahead of the curve that they wouldn't even ever think about getting a chance to ask me for anything. So for example, if I saw that Diet Coke was like half full or even a little bit over half full, I would go into panic mode and I would go get another Diet Coke because I thought, you know what? All they are is like 2 swigs away from being like a quarter full, which means they may ask for another one. And again, I didn't want that to happen because of my pride. I was like, you're not going to tell me what to do. Oh, I need another Diet Coke. Because I felt like I had failed. I feel like my pride, basically, I don't want you to tell me what to do. So what I would do is I'd go get that Diet Coke. And then same thing with everything else. So with the breadsticks, for example, if I saw one breadstick in there, that's basically, you have to remember, When you have one of anything left at a table, that's zero. The reason that's zero is because you know as well as I do, if you've ever gone out to eat or ever been at a gathering, people all eating together, when there's one left in the basket, nobody wants to take it. Whether it be a dessert, a cookie, or whether it be, an appetizer. Let's say there's one more onion ring or a cheese curd left on the plate or in the basket. Nobody wants to be the one to take that final one. So when there's one breadstick in the basket, that basically means there's zero. So if I'd ever see one breadstick in a basket, I'd take off immediately, and I would never even go to the table. Oh, that's the other thing is you don't want to ask. Don't ever try to never ask a rhetorical question. What you want to do is just, the answer to the question. So then basically pretend you asked the question and go take care of business. So for example, I'm not going to go up to that table and say, oh, did you want me to bring you some more breadsticks? What you do is just take off, don't go to the table at all, go grab the bread, and what you'll do is then you just walk by the table and oh, here's some more bread, and you kind of pretend that they asked you for it. Oh, here's some more bread for you. Kind of like, remember you told me to go get bread, now here it is, I'm bringing it back. Oh, here's a breadstick for your table. Kind of like they asked, but remember they didn't. You're just being super proactive, and you're preempting their question of asking you for more breadsticks or whatever it may be. Again, the same thing comes with a salad, same thing comes with a soup. Anything that is free refills, you're going to live and die by that. When we talk about the I Wait for Money podcast, the whole thing was developed with this system in mind, and that is taking care of that table like they've never been taken care of before in their life. So in other words, think about the last time you went out to eat and you literally were there for 30, 40 minutes and you literally didn't ask for one thing from the server other than placing your order. I mean, that's so rare that would happen, but that's what I made for my goal on every single table. And if I did that, don't forget what I talked about in my first podcast. If you do that, you will not only be the best server they've ever had, hey, you will be, they will want to take care of you like you're the best server they've ever had. So don't forget, if you just do a pretty good job compared to right now, the average server that's out there right now, if you just do a pretty good job, you're outstanding. And you're probably going to get 20%, 22, 24, 25% if you're just pretty good, because they are comparing what their experience has been like in previous visits to any restaurant. So when you're pretty good, they're going to give you like 20%, 22, 23%. So that's why I'm saying when we make this podcast of I Wait for Money, I talk about, one of my slogans is, I wait for money, looking, trying to turn I call it the dreaded measly 20% tip. And because if you use the system I'm talking about now, if they leave you 20%, then it's like, man, they must have been the worst tippers in the world. Because for you to do the system and you to succeed with the system, not have them ask you for anything, be preemptive, be courteous, take care of business. Less is more. Remember that episode where we get in, we do our job, take care of business, and we move along. If you do that, you will not get 20%. 20% will be a slap in the face. Now, like I said, there's always those extenuating circumstances. You have people with different cultures who think that they may be from a different country and they feel like, or they think they're so used to the way they were raised, is that servers are doing this for a living. So they're making like $70,000 a year. And whatever you give them is just on top of that. So they might give you like 5%, and they think they went above and beyond because they know you're making $70,000 a year. Now, in America, that's not the case. You're making $2.13 an hour or whatever it is, and you totally rely on that tip. So don't forget, there's always those extenuating circumstances, but we're talking about the long game. We're talking about positive EV. We're talking about in the long run. In the long run, using this system, you are going to be dreading those 20% tips. And they are not going to happen very often. You are going to get way more than that. You're going to be getting 50, 60, 80, 100, 120% tips. I mean, many times, it'd be the best is a two-top, and she has lasagna, he has tour of Italy, and they both share the salad, the breadsticks, Coca-Cola, and a Diet Coke, whatever. And the check comes at like $32 or $25 or whatever. And it was very, very, very common. The check is between $25 and $32, let's say. Very common where they would give me $50 bill and say, keep the change. So give me over 100% tip or nearly 100% tip. And they said, oh, this is the best experience we've ever had, blah, blah, blah. And that's when I told you, less is more. You don't want to be sitting there lingering. But at the end, you can be very courteous. Oh, thank you very much. I'm glad you appreciate my service. I really try hard. Make sure that you have a good experience. So then you're going to be very courteous and just, show them the appreciation that they actually noticed your good service. Okay, so this episode, The Secret of Service, I call it. The Secret of Service. Again, it was kind of developed by accident because I was just like, oh, don't ask me for more breadsticks, and I wasn't like a lazy person, like, I don't want to go get you more bread. I already got, it wasn't like that at all. It was just like, really, you think I need to be told what to do? Like, I can figure this stuff out. And I just, like, my pride, like, oh, why wasn't I more on top of that? So just because I was so sick of like having them ask me for stuff, and I wanted to like basically nullify that and do it ahead of time. So because of that, then I started bringing all that food ahead of time or the drink ahead of time. Like I told you, if it was like a half full of Coca-Cola, I'd like immediately go and get another Coca-Cola. And then when you do make your drop off, by the way, now I want you to flash back to less is more. So one of the things that goes with this whole system, sure, you're doing all this stuff preemptively, right? They're never asking for anything. You're taking care of this. But when you do it, you have to do it in a manner of when you go to drop it off, in a manner of like, or this is my job. You don't point to yourself like, oh, here, look, I'm gonna give you another Coke. Here's another Coke for you. You're gonna like, not make a big deal about it. Basically, like, this is your job. You're doing this, and you're moving along. Okay, so like Coke is a perfect example. Let's say they're half full on the Coca-Cola. You got a fresh straw. You see their Coke sitting there. They're about half full, quarter full, whatever. Remember, try to not let it ever get to a quarter, but let's say a little bit half full, a little bit below half. You go show up with that Coca-Cola. What you do first is you take their Coca-Cola off the table. Okay, you take their Coca-Cola off the table, and by doing that, you will see instantaneously, you'll see a little tiny look in their eye of like, what are you doing? I was still drinking that. And then all of a sudden, you put the new Coke down with the new fresh straw, and you just take off. And when you do that, it's beautiful because what they think is in their brain right away is like, what is he taking my Coke? I was still drinking, And then they realize it's all dawning on them. As it's dawning on them, like, oh, he brought me another one. I didn't even ask for one, but that's cool because I was going to need another one. And then by the time they're processing that and appreciating it, you're gone. So it's so beautiful because you're not there to linger like, oh, can you please say thank you? Look, I brought you a Diet Coke or a Coke without you even asking for it. You're not lingering for praise or anything. You're like, this is my job. Here I go. And I'm telling you, that is the secret to service. This is where if you could do this throughout the process of a whole table, through that for 30 minutes or whatever it is, 35 minutes, 2 top, 3 top, 4 top, whatever it is, if you can accomplish this and you're going to work hard at it, it's going to be tough. I mean, you're going to be very, very busy, right? It's kind of fun. It's almost like a little bit of a challenge. And if you do that, just be ready because it's going to be 50% tip, 40%, 60%. These tips will blow you away. It'll be fascinating. Okay. The other thing I want to make sure that I mention with regards to the system too is when you are being so proactive, it's not easy. So there were many times where servers at the Olive Garden that I worked at, both Olive Gardens, actually I worked at 3 Olive Gardens in my life, so we'll talk about them as this podcast progresses. But the servers that I worked with at every single Olive Garden always wanted more tables. Like, oh, they're in a 3-table section and they wanted a 4th table. Or a lot of times I know we'd be in a 7-table section, so we just go back and forth. And so sometimes you'd have 4, sometimes you'd have 3. Well, I always would tell if I was with the right server in the right section, I'd say, hey, if you want to always have these 4 tables and I'll take these 3 tables, 3 is fine with me. I don't have to be greedy and have a 4th table. You can have the 4th. And they're so appreciative of that, the fellow server, because they want more tables, so more tables, more money. But the thing about it is to be effective with the secret of service with the system is you really 4 tables is going to overwhelm you. You're going to be in a situation where you are going to be asked for things. Oh, can I get another Diet Coke? And remember, that defeats the whole purpose. You're going to get that 20% tip that you don't want. You want that 50, 60, 70. So with 3 tables, you can totally, totally do it. And now, when you first start this system, because it's kind of new to you, just hearing about this and whatnot, it's going to be very difficult. And there's going to be these little things that you don't realize. Oh, I forgot about the soup. He was getting low on soup. Shoot. Or I didn't even think about this. There's those little things. So at first, they'd probably only just try to do it on one table, see what happens. Just one table a night. They come in. Let's say you're working a 4-hour shift, and they come in and it's at a 2-top, let's say, and you got your other 2 tables, okay? Give your other 2 tables decent service, right? But just focus and say, okay, for this 2-top right now, that table right now, I'm going to give them the secret of service, and I am going to make sure they do not ask me for one single thing. So you're going to try that on that table, and let's say they run the check up to like $24 or whatever. So it's not a big check or anything, but just look at that tip, okay? That tip's going to be $12. The tip's going to be $10. That's what my guess is, $11 or $10. The reason I say that is if it's a $24 check, I could easily see them putting $35 in there and saying keep the change. So it's almost, we're talking about a 50% tip almost, okay? So that's beautiful. That's what we want. So do you realize why you don't need 4, 5, 6 tables? You can take your 3, because those percentages that you're making, when you're making 50, 60% on one of your 3 tables, or let's say you do it for 2 of the 3 tables and you keep doing it, you don't need that 4th and 5th table just for extra sales to get extra tips. Because what happens is, what people don't understand is, when you get the extra tables, sure, you get these extra tables, but then you're not giving them that great a service, and they might tip you 15% because you're always behind or whatnot. So that extra 15% is so measly. You give them like a $60 check and you're getting $9. And it's a lot to take care of, a $60 check. It'd be much better to only have 3 tables and don't have the extra table, and then get 3 tables or 2 tables even, and get 50, 60% tips on those 3 tables. All right, so in summary, remember, this is like the linchpin of the whole I Wait for Money podcast, the whole secret of service, I call it, and that is, you will not allow your guests, the table that you're waiting on, you will not allow them to ask you for anything. You are going to be getting it, okay? The only time they're ask you for anything is when you say, okay, remember the introduction that we talked about, episode 1. Hi, my name is Craig. I'll be your server this evening. Here's how I can do it. We can do beverages only, give you some more time to look at the menu. We can do beverages, appetizers, and entree if everybody's ready, or maybe just beverage and appetizer only. You tell me whatever the table feels like they're ready for, that's what I'll do. And then they place their order, okay? So that's when they're going to be telling you what to do, okay? Or they're going to be telling you what they want, okay? But then from that point forward, till you get the dessert order, let's say at the end, from that point forward, that's it. It's all over. No more questions, okay? You go by the table, and if you even glance at the table and you see something like, oh, I think they're a little bit low on this, don't even stop by the table. Oh, would you like some more salad? Don't do that. Would you like some more salad? Everybody does that, and they say yes, and you go get more salad. You just cruise on by, go get that salad immediately, and then we're going to talk about that. I don't want to let all the tips out in one episode. I have many, many more. Like I said, I developed it, I realized it, I discovered it, but then I made little tweaks to it. I thought, what else and I thought, wait, this is perfect. And I tested it on certain tables. That's the beautiful thing about being a server, is you get table after table after table every night, right? Different tables. You could try little things. And some things work, some things don't work. So I have like little lines. And what's kind of interesting about the human being is you're in a situation where waiting on tables, the same things happen like all the time, right? They always happen. So it's like these corny lines that these guests use. They all are going to use them. They all think you've never heard them before. So you have to kind of pretend that you've never heard it before and it's brilliant and laugh at it. But you also could try to think of a good comeback that's just as funny to give to them, since you kind of know the line is coming. So that's what's kind of funny, is you can use this strategy and the little strategies we're going to talk about as these episodes move along. You can try them on certain tables to be like your guinea pigs and see how they're working or they're not working. Then you could ditch it. So that's what I did after I discovered the secret of service. Then I added some little tweaks to it, and some were brilliant, and then I kept using them forever, and they're part of my strategy now. And then others I tried and wasn't really that effective. People didn't care. So then I just ditched those. But so that's what we'll be talking about on future podcasts. We're going to be talking about taking the system now and then your little mannerisms, what you're doing, little tiny tweaks things you may say, things you'll do that is going to even take it to the next level. And that's when we're talking about the 100% tip, 90% tip. Okay. So that's it for now. Thanks for joining me. Episode 3, Secret of Service. Craig Daniel. Take care.